He was the only son of a billionaire. At just 5 years old, he lived in a world of challenges that most of us cannot imagine, relying on a wheelchair to explore his world. His father, a powerful and immensely wealthy man, had built a fortress of love and security around him, trying to shield him from all the world's pain. But in the end, the danger did not come from the outside. It came from within. It came from the person he trusted most to care for his son, the family's nanny. What this woman did in secret, without permission, and driven by a silent hatred, brought the father to his knees in tears. She gambled with the soul of a child who was not hers by blood. And when the world discovered what was happening behind closed doors, everything changed. This is the true story of how love, when it is real, doesn't need DNA. It only needs courage. And sometimes the greatest acts of loyalty come from the most unexpected hearts. Before we continue with this moving story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video. And comment below to let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear from you. Have you ever felt that tightness in your chest, an inexplicable urge to return home, as if a silent voice was screaming that something was terribly wrong? For Ethan Hayes, that feeling was an icy knot in his stomach, a premonition that made him skip the last and most important meeting of the day. The silver Tesla Model S glided silently through the tree-lined streets of Greenwich, Connecticut, its wheels whispering against the damp asphalt of that February afternoon. Ethan adjusted the rearview mirror, an automatic gesture, and for an instant, he stared at his own reflection, the tired eyes, the first threads of silver appearing at his temples, his Italian tie loosened after 12 hours at the office. In his early 40s, he had built a financial empire, but that afternoon, none of it mattered. Perhaps it was Claire's call from Paris, her voice strangely distant when she said her business trip would be extended for another week. Or maybe it was the emptiness he'd felt at lunch, alone in his corporate tower, looking out over a city that, despite his having conquered it, seemed utterly indifferent. The truth was, a primal need was pulling him home, to see his son, Leo. The mansion appeared at the end of the private drive, imposing and elegant, with its stone walls and impeccable gardens. The iron gate opened silently, recognizing the vehicle, and Ethan felt that familiar mixture of pride and a melancholy he could never quite name. He had designed every inch of that house as a sanctuary for his family, a place where Leo, his little Leo, could grow up surrounded by beauty, comfort, and above all, security, a world perfectly adapted to his special needs. He parked in the underground garage, but instead of taking the private elevator, he decided to walk through the side garden. He needed air. His John Lobb shoes echoed on the stone path as he pulled his tie completely loose, the cold February air a relief against his neck. The garden was silent, bathed in the sad golden light of a winter evening. Everything was perfect, immaculate, controlled. And that's when he heard it. The laughter. It wasn't Leo's bright, clear laugh, the one that illuminated his darkest days. This was a harsh, mocking laugh, laden with a cruelty that sent a shiver down his spine. Ethan stopped, his brow furrowed, trying to pinpoint the sound. The laughter came again, now accompanied by voices he couldn't quite distinguish. His heart began to pound. Following the sound, he rounded the house toward the back garden, where the pool and the play area he had designed especially for Leo were located. His steps grew cautious, a primitive paternal instinct sounding a silent alarm. The sound of running water mingled with the voices, and a wave of icy panic began to creep up his spine, though he didn't understand why. As he rounded the corner of the summer pavilion, the scene that unfolded before him hit him like a punch to the gut, stealing his breath. There was Leo, in his wheelchair in the middle of the yard, soaked from head to toe. His clothes, the navy blue cashmere sweater Claire had bought at Saks Fifth Avenue, clung to his small, shivering body like a second, icy skin. Water dripped from his brown hair, running down his cheeks, red with cold, and forming small puddles on the leather seat of his chair. But what tore at Ethan's soul were his son's eyes. Huge, frightened, glistening with tears that mixed with the cold water streaming down his face. Diane Vickers, the nanny hired 6 months ago with impeccable references, was holding the garden hose as if it were a weapon. Her face, normally composed and professional, was twisted into a mask of cruelty Ethan could never have conceived. Her lips curled into a sadistic smirk as she aimed the jet of freezing water directly at Leo. "Enjoying your bath, rich boy?" she spat between laughs. "Let's see if this teaches you not to throw a tantrum when I say it's time for your medicine." Leo tried to shield himself with his trembling little arms, but the force of the water was too strong. His wheelchair, a state-of-the-art model, emitted small warning beeps, detecting moisture in its electronic components. "Please!" Leo's voice was a choked whisper. "I'm cold." "Cold?" Diane increased the water pressure. "You don't know what cold is, you spoiled brat. You don't know what it's like to live without heating, working since you were 5 for families like yours who treat us like dirt." Ethan felt the blood freeze in his veins. His muscles tensed, but he was paralyzed by sheer disbelief. How could anyone deliberately hurt Leo, his helpless boy, his son who had never harmed a fly? "Look at you shiver," Diane continued, now aiming the spray at Leo's face. "Remember when you told me you wanted to be like the other boys? Well, these are the games other boys play, dear. Rough games that build character." Leo began to cough, choking on the cold water as it entered his nose and mouth. His small chest rose and fell erratically, and his lips began to take on a bluish tint that Ethan recognized immediately as the precursor to one of his asthmatic attacks. Leo had suffered from asthma since he was a baby, a condition worsened by stress and extreme cold. It was that sound, that choking cough, that broke the spell of horror holding Ethan motionless. "Enough!" The cry erupted from the depths of his soul, charged with a fury he never knew he possessed. "Drop that hose, now!" Diane started, whirling to face him, her eyes wide. The hose fell from her hands. The cruelty on her face was instantly replaced by the pure terror of someone caught in the vilest of acts. "Mr. Hayes, she stammered, backing away. But he didn't hear her. His eyes were locked on Leo, who sat motionless in his chair, trembling uncontrollably. "Leo," Ethan whispered, approaching slowly, as one would a wounded animal. "Daddy's here, son. Daddy's here." He knelt beside the chair, feeling the frigid dampness soak through his expensive trousers. With hands shaking from both rage and tenderness, he gently brushed the wet hair from Leo's face. The boy's skin was as cold as marble. "Daddy," Leo managed to articulate between gasps. "I can't breathe." "I know, my love, I know." Ethan shrugged off his suit jacket and wrapped it around Leo, trying to offer some warmth. "It's going to be okay now. Daddy will take care of you." As he comforted his son, Ethan could feel Diane's presence behind him as she began to stammer incoherent excuses. "Sir, you don't understand. The boy was being very difficult. He refused his medicine, and I just thought a little discipline." "Shut up." Ethan's voice was dangerously low, each word articulated with a precision that was more terrifying than any shout. "Do not say another word." Leo clung to his father's shirt, seeking refuge. Every tremor in his son's body was like a dagger in Ethan's heart. How long had this torture been going on? "Did she hurt you anywhere, champ?" he asked softly. Leo pointed to his chest with a trembling hand. "Here. It hurts here, and I'm so cold, Daddy." Ethan felt his heart shatter. He lifted Leo into his arms, wheelchair and all, and turned to face Diane. The expression on his face made the woman flinch. It wasn't anger, it was something far colder, far more frightening. It was the calculated look of a man who had decided to utterly destroy the person who dared to harm his child. 5 years old, Ethan said, each word dripping with venom. Leo is 5 years old. He's a boy in a wheelchair who has never shown you an ounce of disrespect. And you decide to torture him with ice-cold water in the middle of winter? He began walking toward the house, carrying Leo. I hired you because you had flawless references. I paid you the highest salary in the city to make sure my son had the best possible care. Mr. Hayes, please let me explain. She tried again. Ethan stopped. Explain what? That you humiliated a defenseless child? That you used his physical condition to exert power? That you put his life at risk because you enjoyed watching him suffer? Leo stirred in his father's arms. I was scared, he whispered. I thought you weren't coming, and I wouldn't be here anymore. Those words were a hammer blow to Ethan's chest. His son, his 5-year-old son, had thought he might die at the hands of the person meant to protect him. He stopped at the door to the house, not turning to face Diane, who was now begging, talking about her own children, about her unemployed husband. A moment of weakness? Ethan repeated. You call torturing a child a moment of weakness. Do you know what a moment of weakness is, Diane? It's me restraining myself from calling the police this very instant. It's me not wiping that sadistic smirk off the face you were wearing 5 minutes ago. But make no mistake, I will make sure you never work with children again. I will make sure every family in this city knows exactly what kind of monster you are. And if I ever see you near my son again, there will be no moment of weakness to hold me back. He went inside and shut the door firmly, the sound echoing through the hall. Through the glass, he saw Diane's silhouette, motionless on the terrace. Is the mean lady gone? Leo's voice was so small, so fragile. Yes, son, she's gone, and she is never, ever coming back. I promise. Upstairs, in the sanctuary of Leo's room, Ethan began to care for his son. As he peeled off the soaked clothes, Leo asked in a low voice, Daddy, did I do something wrong? Ethan paused, meeting his son's eyes. Why would you ask that, champ? Because Mrs. Diane said it was my fault, that rich boys like me needed to learn hard lessons. Listen to me very carefully, Leo, Ethan said, holding his son's face in his hands. You did nothing wrong. None of this was your fault. Do you understand me? She's a broken person with a lot of hate in her heart. But you, my son, you are perfect exactly as you are. He hugged Leo tightly, feeling the small sobs that shook his body. He drew the warmest, bubbliest bath Leo had ever seen, and as the boy finally began to warm up, the color returning to his cheeks, he asked a question that struck Ethan like a slap. Daddy, why are some people mean? Ethan swallowed hard, choosing his words carefully. I think sometimes, champ, people are very hurt inside, and that pain makes them hurt others. But that never ever makes what they do okay. After the bath, wrapped in his favorite bunny rabbit robe, Leo seemed more like himself. Ethan promised a special night, pizza, ice cream, and all the movies he wanted. As Leo settled into bed, he asked, Daddy, can you stay here until I fall asleep, like when I was a little baby? Of course, champ. In fact, I'm going to work right here beside you all night. The first genuinely happy smile Ethan had seen since he got home lit up Leo's face. But Ethan's work that night was different. He called Dr. Miller, Leo's pediatrician, who agreed to come over immediately. Then he called his lawyer, his voice cold and precise. I want you to investigate Diane Vickers, and I want to sue her for everything possible. The last call was the hardest. To Claire in Paris, he told her everything. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy before it was broken by a choked sob. I'm on the next flight out, she said, her voice trembling with fury and grief. That's our baby, Ethan, and I wasn't there to protect him. When Dr. Miller arrived, his examination confirmed that physically, Leo would be fine. Hypothermia hadn't set in, and his lungs were clear, but the doctor was direct. Emotionally, Ethan, he's going to need some help. I want him to see Dr. Vasquez. She's the best child psychologist in the state. Later, as they watched a movie and Leo finally drifted off to sleep, nestled against him, Ethan lay awake, the image of his son shivering in the garden replaying in his mind. He had failed. He had failed to protect the most important person in his life. Just then, his phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Diane Vickers had tried to get into his office building earlier. Security had escorted her out. The next morning, Leo surprised Ethan by wanting to go to school. He was excited about his project on black holes. He's stronger than most adults, Ethan thought, a wave of admiration washing over him. But when Leo asked, "Daddy, does Mrs. Diane know where my school is?" Ethan's blood ran cold. He hadn't thought of that. He drove Leo to school and explained everything to the principal, Mrs. Peterson, who immediately reinforced security. But upon arriving at his office, Ethan's unease only grew. His assistant informed him that Diane had been there again, earlier, hysterical, insisting she had to speak with him. She said something about having information you needed to know, about your family. What information? What could that woman possibly know? For 6 months, she had been inside his home, with access to everything. The day dragged on. Ethan called the school 3 times, each time receiving the same assurance. Leo was fine. At 4:00, he couldn't take it anymore and left to pick up his son. As they arrived home, Ethan immediately sensed something was wrong. An unfamiliar car was parked down the street. The curtains, normally open, were drawn. "Leo, stay in the car for a minute, champ. Lock the doors and don't open them for anyone," he said, pointing to the panic button. He approached the house, his senses on high alert. The front door was unlocked. He stepped inside. The house was eerily silent. "Maria," he called for the housekeeper. No answer. He took the stairs, his heart hammering against his ribs. The door to Leo's room was ajar, and from inside he heard the unmistakable sound of someone rummaging through drawers. He crept closer and peered inside. It was Diane. Kneeling on the floor, papers scattered around her. She was tearing through Leo's room with a frantic desperation. In her hand, she clutched a small metal box Ethan recognized. Leo's treasure box. In it, among drawings and small toys, was something Ethan had forgotten about. Leo's original birth certificate. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" Ethan's voice cut through the silence. Diane spun around, her eyes wide like a cornered animal's. "I came to get what belongs to me," she said, her voice trembling but defiant. "What you owe me. I don't owe you anything except a one-way ticket to prison." A chilling smile spread across Diane's face. "Are you sure, Mr. Hayes? Because I think there are some things about your perfect son that you don't know." She leaned down and snatched the birth certificate from the floor. "Your son," she said, savoring each word, "is not your son, and I have the proof." Ethan's world stopped. The words echoed in his head, making no sense. "You're insane," he managed to say. "Am I?" she laughed, waving the paper. "Then why does your dear wife have correspondence with a fertility clinic in Switzerland? Why are there documents about sperm donation hidden in her papers? She used another man's sperm to have Leo, and for 5 years you've been raising a stranger's child thinking he was yours." The floor seemed to drop out from under Ethan's feet. Fragmented memories bombarded him. The years of trying for a child, the pain in Claire's eyes, and then, suddenly, the miracle pregnancy. The way everyone always said Leo looked just like his mother, with not a trace of him. "That's why I disciplined him yesterday," Diane said, her voice a soft poison. "Because he isn't yours. And you deserve to know the truth before you waste your life on him." "Shut up!" Ethan's roar ripped through the air, but it was too late. The seed of doubt had been planted. At that exact moment, the front door opened. "Ethan, I'm home early." It was Claire's voice. Her footsteps started up the stairs. Diane's expression was one of pure triumph. Claire appeared in the doorway and froze. Her eyes darted from Ethan to Diane to the papers on the floor and landed on the birth certificate in Diane's hand. All the color drained from Claire's face. And into the tense silence, Leo's innocent voice came from downstairs, through the intercom he used to call them. "Daddy, Mommy, can I come in now? I want to show Mommy my project on black holes." Diane's smile widened into a victorious grimace. She had done it. She was going to destroy everything. But then something unexpected happened. Seeing the fear growing in his son's eyes on the small monitor, something inside Ethan solidified. He knelt in front of Leo, who had just reached the top of the stairs in his chair. "Leo," he said, his voice firm and clear, "listen to me very carefully, champ. It doesn't matter what anyone says. You are my son. You are my son because I have loved you since the first day I saw you, because I have been there for every laugh and every tear. That's what makes us a family. Blood means nothing." He stood up and faced Diane. "You're mistaken, because you don't understand what it is to be a father. It has nothing to do with DNA. It has to do with love." "It's a lie!" Diane shrieked. "He's not your son." "Yes, he is." The voice came from the doorway. It was Maria, the housekeeper. In her hand was a phone. "I recorded everything. Your confession of abuse, your breaking and entering, your threats. And I clean Mrs. Claire's office every week. I've never seen any of those documents you mentioned. You made it all up. The police are on their way." In that instant, Diane's facade crumbled. The truth was, there was no secret. There was only the hatred of a sick woman who, in her attempt to destroy a happy family, had invented the cruelest lie she could conceive. After the police took Diane away, a strange silence settled over the house. "Daddy," Leo said, "when the mean lady said I wasn't your son, I got really scared." Ethan hugged him tightly, the tears finally coming. "Why were you scared, champ?" "Because I thought that if I wasn't your son, maybe you wouldn't love me anymore." Ethan held his son's face. "Leo, look at me. You are my son, and I'm your father. And nothing, absolutely nothing in this world will ever change that. I love you more than words can say." Claire wrapped them both in a hug. That night, the three of them stayed together, survivors of a storm, their family not just intact, but forged into something even stronger. Diane's attempt to destroy their love had failed spectacularly. Instead, she had only proven how unbreakable it was. She had proven that a family is not defined by the blood we share, but by the love we refuse to let go of.